Right now, someone softer than you is being broken by this world. Not in a dramatic, movie way. Quietly. They're staying late at work for a boss who will replace them in a week. They're taking advice from a family that secretly resents their ambition. They're in a relationship where their kindness is used like currency and spent without mercy. They think patience will be rewarded. They think fate is keeping score. It isn't. If the world was fair, the most honest people would be the most successful. If the world was kind, the most loyal people would be the most protected. If the world was just, the most forgiving people would be the least betrayed. Look around. Does it look like that? You know people who would never cheat, lie, or betray, yet they're the ones crying in their car, swallowed by stress, apologizing for everything. And you know people who move through life like sharks, sharp smiles, calculated charm, and somehow they land on their feet every time. You've told yourself, I don't want to become like them. But here's the horrific truth nobody warned you about. If you refuse to become ruthless in a ruthless world, you do not create a gentler universe. You simply nominate yourself as its victim. The world doesn't break you with one big blow. It wears you down with 1,000 cuts you forgive, explain, and absorb, until there's nothing left of you but a polite ghost. Machiavelli saw this long before social media and modern jobs and pretty quotes. His world was raw: knives, poison, exile, execution. Yet the psychology was the same as what you're facing now. Courts filled with people trying to be good while others played for power. Leaders trying to be loved while their enemies planned in silence. Servants who believed loyalty alone would keep them safe and vanished when they were no longer useful. You don't want that to be true. You want to believe not everyone is like that. And you're right, not everyone is. But enough people are that if you walk through life assuming everyone is kind, honest, and loyal just because you are, the world will eat you alive while you're busy defending its intentions. This video is not here to tell you to become cruel. It's not here to turn you into a villain. It's here to separate two things you've confused your whole life: being good and being harmless. You can be good and still be terrifying to anyone who tries to break you. You can be kind and still be untouchable. You can be compassionate and still be ruthless where it matters. But first, you have to stop worshiping the version of you that keeps getting destroyed. Let's be honest about that version. That version over-explains when someone disrespects them. That version would rather shatter quietly than risk someone calling them selfish. The world loves that version of you because it's so easy to use. Your job loves the you who never says no. Your toxic ex loves the you who always replies. Your manipulative friend loves the you who always understands. Your family loves the you who sacrifices your dreams to keep their peace. The only person who doesn't love that version is the part of you that has to live inside its bones. Machiavelli's world taught him something ugly but precise. People love you most when you're useful and least when you're strong. You've spent your entire life choosing love over safety. You made your boss love you by never pushing back. You made your parents proud by killing parts of yourself they didn't understand. You made partners stay by tolerating things that broke you. And how safe did it make you? Did love stop them from leaving? Did loyalty stop them from taking too much? Did your patience stop them from repeating the same wound? Love is beautiful, but it is not a contract. You cling to "they love me" like it's a shield. Machiavelli would look you in the eye and say, they may love you. Not fear like terror. Fear like respect. Fear like, if I mistreat them, I lose access. I lose something valuable. Right now, too many people in your life do not fear that. They know you'll stay if they say sorry enough times. They know you'll forgive if they cry. They know you'll understand if they tell a sad story about their childhood. You think you're being noble. They think you're predictable. There's a word for someone who never enforces their own boundaries: broken. And the world, your world, will happily keep breaking you as long as you refuse to become sharp enough to cut back. So what does becoming ruthless actually mean? It doesn't mean screaming at waiters and laughing at the weak. That's not ruthless. That's pathetic. Ruthless, in the Machiavellian sense, means this: you are willing to do what is necessary to protect your mind, your future, and your dignity, even when it makes you look bad to people committed to using you. You become ruthless about your boundaries, ruthless about your time, ruthless about who gets access to your heart, ruthless about what you tolerate more than once. Let's put this into real situations, because otherwise it just sounds like dark poetry. Picture your job. You do more than you're paid for. You cover for coworkers. They call you a team player. They give you praise instead of promotion. Then one day, the company restructures. The boss who couldn't live without you fires you on a Zoom call with HR. The coworker you covered for takes your role. The family you thought you were part of posts a listing to replace you the next day. You sit there, stunned. They did. That's why it was easy. They knew you'd go quietly. Or picture your relationships. You date someone who is inconsistent, hot and cold, all in 1 week, distant the next. You become an emotional sponge. They spill, you absorb. They heal, you ache. One day they leave. Not gently, not thanking you for your patience. They say, you deserve better, and go give the stable version of themselves to someone who demanded respect from day one. You lie in bed thinking, but I knew them from the beginning. I was there when they were broken. Because you taught them you'd stay no matter what. Because you normalized disrespect early. Because they didn't fear losing you. They feared being alone. That's not the same thing. Or think of your family. But family means you never move away, even if staying kills your dreams. You keep helping financially, even if they refuse to help themselves. You break yourself into the shape they can handle, then wonder why you feel like a stranger in your own life. The world didn't need to break you with war or prison. It used love, expectation, and culture. That's why soft motivational speeches never fixed you. They told you to open your heart, when your heart was already stretched to the point of tearing. Machiavelli wouldn't tell you to open your heart more. He'd tell you to close the gates sometimes. Not forever, not to everyone, but decisively, when someone has proven they only enter to loot. You've spent your entire life learning how to be good according to everyone else's script. Be agreeable, be forgiving, be pleasant, be understanding. Now the world is asking you a different exam question. Do you know how to not be good on command? Can you disagree calmly when someone expects you to smile and obey? Can you say, no, I'm not okay with that, and hold the line when they get upset? Can you walk away without explaining for 3 hours so they'll understand your heart? Because in a ruthless world, not knowing how to not be good is like not knowing how to say no in a language where everyone is fluent in pressure. Comment: I used to think being ruthless meant I'd lose myself. So what does this look like in practice? It starts quieter than you think. You don't wake up tomorrow and scream at everyone. That's not ruthlessness. That's a tantrum. You start with small betrayals of your old self. You don't answer that message right away, even though guilt tells you to. You don't volunteer for every task, even though silence makes you itchy. You don't immediately agree to plans, even though no sits in your throat like a stone. You let people experience, maybe for the first time, the version of you that doesn't bend automatically. They will not clap. Some will get annoyed. Some will push harder. Some will make it spiritual or moral. They're not describing your character. They're describing their loss of control. Ruthlessness is the art of letting that discomfort exist without rushing in to soothe it at your own expense. You walk slower into arguments. You delay your apologies until you know what you're apologizing for. You sit with the idea that somebody, somewhere, is telling a version of the story where you're the villain, and you don't sprint into their narrative to fix it. Because every time you sprint into someone else's narrative to fix your image, you abandon your own life to go manage theirs. Machiavelli's princes who survived were not the ones who ran around pleasing every faction. They chose. They disappointed some, enraged others, secured a few, and lived with the cost. That's the part nice people never let themselves imagine. Living with the cost of being disliked, misunderstood, even hated, and staying rooted. Ask yourself honestly, how many times did you say yes because you were scared of the story they'd tell about you if you said no? That job, that family expectation, that friend. All your life you've been trying to control the stories in other people's mouths. Meanwhile, your own story is suffocating. The world will break you as long as you prioritize image over impact. What it looks like versus what it costs. Today, you start measuring the cost. That's the ruthless audit. It hurts. You will not like some of the answers. But pain isn't new for you. You've been living in a softer, slower pain for years. The difference now is that this pain will lead somewhere. In later parts, we'll go deeper into Machiavelli's logic. How to decide when to be good and when to be not good. How to execute ruthlessness without becoming reckless. And how to build a life where your softness is finally protected instead of exploited. For now, sit with this. The world is not going to suddenly become gentle because you are. People are not going to wake up and stop using others just because you never would. Life is not going to hand you a medal for all the years you stayed small. You can keep begging the world to be kinder. Or you can become so clear, so firm, so quietly ruthless in your standards that breaking you becomes the one thing this world can't do anymore. You weren't born ruthless. You were born open. But from here on, you are no longer available for a life that requires you to break yourself to keep everyone else comfortable. That's where real ruthlessness begins. Not in what you do to others, but in what you finally refuse to keep doing to yourself. You started to feel it. The same world, the same people, the same problems, but you're not collapsing the way you used to. You hesitate before saying yes. You feel the old guilt rising, and you hold your ground anyway. That's the beginning. But if you stop here, the world will simply adjust its tactics. See, the moment you stop being soft in obvious ways, life doesn't clap for you. It responds. Some people get sweeter. Some people get sharper. Some disappear. You're not just changing habits. You're changing the balance of power everywhere you show up. And that scares people who were fed by your weakness. This is where most nice people snap back to their old selves. The pressure increases. Complaints get louder. Tears come out. Threats start. You hear that, and a part of you panics. Maybe I went too far. Maybe I'm becoming cold. You haven't gone too far. You've taken one step out of a cage. The cage is just rattling to get you back in. This is where Machiavellian ruthlessness stops being a fantasy and becomes a choice. Because it's not enough to feel different. You have to act differently in the exact moments your old self would fold. Let's talk about those moments. There are 3 areas where the world tests your ruthlessness the hardest: your standards, your loyalty, your mercy. If you're soft in any of those, you will be broken quietly over time, no matter how much you know your worth in theory. Let's start with standards. You like to think your standards are clear. Sounds good, but watch what happens in reality. You laugh it off. You convince yourself it's different. Someone asks for one little favor at work that somehow turns into a weekly obligation for no extra pay. You tell yourself these are exceptions. You don't see that your standards are made of wet paper. Ruthless standards are not what you say you believe. They're what you enforce when it's inconvenient. Machiavelli didn't care about promises. He cared about what rulers actually did when tempted, threatened, or pressured. You promised to always be there for people. You promised to stay loyal to jobs, cities, relationships, versions of yourself. Those promises may have made sense in the past. They might have kept you alive, loved, accepted. But if keeping them now requires you to shatter yourself, they are no longer noble. They are outdated. You think breaking those promises makes you a bad person. Machiavelli would say it makes you alive to the present. The world has changed. You have changed. The word you break today might be the spine you save. Comment. I realized I was more faithful to old promises than to my current reality. Ruthlessness with standards looks like this. You don't keep accepting half apologies followed by repeat behavior. You don't stay in environments hoping your suffering will inspire them to treat you better. You don't keep giving one more chance when the pattern is older than some of your clothes. You don't scream. You don't make grand announcements. You observe. You decide. You act. They call. You don't answer. They ask. You say no. They test. You don't move. No tantrum. Just enforcement. Now, loyalty. You've probably worn loyalty like a badge your whole life. I'm not like other people. And you have. You stayed long after your mind, body, and soul tried to drag you out. You stayed in love with people who loved your usefulness more than they loved you. You told yourself loyalty was a virtue. Machiavelli would ask you a colder question. Loyalty to what? He admired loyalty when it served a purpose. But blind loyalty? He knew it was a fast way to ruin. He saw what happens when a prince is more loyal to his allies than to his own survival. You are the prince of your own life. When you are not wise, when you refuse to see patterns, when you ignore the cost of your loyalty, no advice can save you. Therapists can map the dysfunction. Friends can shake their heads. But if you worship loyalty more than wisdom, you will choose the fire every time. Comment. I used to say I'm just built different about how long I stayed. Ruthless loyalty is different. You stay committed to people and paths that also protect you, that grow you, that respect your limits. But the second your loyalty becomes a knife turned inward, you flip the script. You become more loyal to your own survival than to any story that demands your destruction. They will call it selfish. It isn't. It's rebalanced loyalty. Your loyalty is no longer a weapon anyone can pick up and use against you. You can still be ride or die, just not for dynamics that are already killing you. Now the third area, mercy. You pride yourself on being forgiving. You see the good in people. And maybe all of that is true. But here's the question you never ask. Has your mercy helped them grow? Or has it simply given them a soft landing every time they jump on your neck? Machiavelli knew mercy was dangerous when applied to the wrong people. In modern terms, half measures get you hurt. You give tiny punishments for big betrayals, silent treatments, passive-aggressive comments, moody distance. You don't truly leave. You don't truly change. You don't truly cut access. You slightly pull back. And they notice, not that they crossed a serious line, but that you'll huff and puff, then get over it. They revenge themselves for slight injuries, because slight injuries don't change anything. You express your hurt, but still answer their calls. You cry, but still do them favors. You say, I'm done, but still show up. They learn there is no real consequence. Your mercy has no spine. Ruthless mercy does something different. It either embraces fully or cuts completely. If someone makes a mistake and shows genuine repentance, you don't torture them forever. You truly forgive. You stop bringing it up. You move on together, or you move on separately. But if someone shows you repeated contempt, disrespect, exploitation, you don't keep wounding them lightly and staying close enough to keep bleeding. You annihilate the dynamic. You block. You leave. You change your number. You move. You do whatever total looks like in that situation. Not out of hatred, out of self-respect and clarity. Half goodbyes are how the world keeps breaking you in installments. Comment. I thought I was being the bigger person by always forgiving. You see ruthless people winning. You see manipulators getting promoted. You see liars walking free. So instead of becoming a better player, you leave the board. You stop asking for raises. You stop standing up for yourself. You stop sharing your ideas. You call it peace. It's not peace. It's surrender. Machiavelli would never tell you to become a snake for its own sake. He'd tell you to learn from snakes so you don't get bitten in the same place twice. Not all of them. Some are. Some aren't. Your job is not to copy their cruelty. Your job is to study their clarity. Notice how fast they say no. Notice how little they explain. Notice how they don't flinch when someone disapproves. Notice how they protect their time like it's a royal treasure. Strip away the ego and cruelty. Keep the spine. You can stand up without stepping on people. You can move strategically without lying. You can protect your interests without becoming a predator. Ruthlessness is not about enjoying someone else's pain. It's about refusing to keep choosing your own. So how do you actually start living this without turning into some cartoon villain? You create 2 lists: people you will still be soft with, places you will never be soft again. Soft with children, soft with elders who have cared for you, soft with friends who have shown, again and again, that they protect you even when it costs them. But never soft again with people who go for your insecurities when angry, jobs that treat your entire life as disposable, family members who use love as blackmail, partners who apologize without changing. Your softness becomes a gift, not a default. It has to be earned, not just accessed by anyone who knows your name. Think of your ruthlessness as armor you wear to move through an unfair world, not as a weapon you swing at everyone you meet. Armor doesn't attack. It protects. People who love you will adapt to it. They'll say, good. They'll learn to knock instead of barging in. People who were using you will whine about it. They'll accuse you of turning into a monster because their favorite prey grew teeth. In the final part, we're going to turn this into a full playbook. How to walk into work, love, family, friendships carrying this energy without losing your humanity. How to choose where to be gentle and where to be unshakably hard. And how to live in a way where the world might still hit you, but it can no longer break you. Because ruthless isn't your new personality. It's your insurance policy. It's the quiet line in the sand that says, I will still love. I will still care. I will still feel. The world didn't change. It's still unfair. People still lie. Good intentions still get crushed under someone else's agenda. But something has shifted, and you can feel it in your bones. The same message that would have ruined your whole week now just annoys you for an hour. The same guilt that used to drag you back into toxic conversations now hits a wall and falls flat. The same people who once walked through you like a door now hesitate before they push. That hesitation, That's your ruthlessness showing. Not the Hollywood version. Not screaming, not plotting, not revenge. The quiet kind. The kind that lives in your decisions when no one's watching. The kind that says, I can love you and still not let you hurt me. I can care about you and still choose me. But to live here long term, to stay unbreakable in a world that profits from your softness, you need more than moments. You need a code. A ruthless code. Not something you post online. Something you bleed into your behavior until it stops feeling like Machiavelli and starts feeling like you. Let's get real with it. Because right now, whether you realize it or not, your life runs on an old code. That code got you hurt. Ruthlessness means rewriting it, line by line. Machiavelli looked at life in a way that most people are too scared to. He didn't assume things would work out. He assumed chaos. He assumed betrayal. He assumed danger. He wrote, not for fairy tales, but for a world that looks a lot like yours. Unstable, unpredictable, full of people who smile while they calculate. Half of what happens to you is chaos. The family you were born into, the country you live in, the economy, the trauma you didn't choose. That half has already left fingerprints on you. But the other half, the half you can control, is where ruthlessness lives. You were raised to be gentle with that half, to let it slide. Ruthlessness is when you stop saying that. Your friend keeps canceling last minute. Ruthless you stops rearranging your life for someone who treats your time like trash. Your job keeps loading you with just one more thing. Ruthless you. I can handle A or B, not both. Your partner keeps flirting with disrespect, calling you crazy when you react. Old you cries, explains, forgives. Ruthless you stops arguing about what happened and starts deciding what you will never live through twice. You can't control fortune. You can control your standards, your exits, your reactions, your circle, your time. That's where the world used to break you, in the half that was yours. You handed it to other people and called it love. Now you take it back and call it respect. Let's talk about how you actually command that half. Because if you don't command it, someone else will. Your boss will command your hours. Your trauma will command your choices. Your loneliness will command your standards. Machiavelli didn't romanticize power. He defined it. You want your mind to obey you instead of anxiety? You want your life to obey your priorities instead of everyone else's emergencies? You want your boundaries to actually hold when pushed? Then you have to know how to command. Command is not shouting. Command is not drama. Command is clarity plus follow-through. And then, this is where ruthlessness comes in. You act like those sentences are laws, not suggestions. You don't negotiate every time. You don't write a 3-page explanation. You don't crumble the moment someone looks disappointed. You issue the command once. Then you enforce it with action. Message. No meeting on your one day off. No showing up after someone has shown you, repeatedly, what they do with your presence. Comment. I used to beg myself to have boundaries while breaking every rule I made as soon as someone pushed. That wasn't kindness. The brutal thing about commanding your life is this. You have to watch certain people fall away. Not because you hate them, because they were only ever there for the version of you that didn't command anything. The version that was always available, always forgiving, always bending. When you stop being endlessly available, people who were feeding on you will feel starved. They will call you words, cold, selfish, arrogant, ruthless. They're not describing your soul. They're describing their access. Your old self would hear those words and panic. I'm changing too much. Your new self hears them and keeps walking. Because you've finally chosen something more important than being seen as good, being whole. Now, let's move from concept to daily reality. On a random weekday, not just in dramatic scenes. It looks like this. You wake up and your first thoughts are yours, not social media's. You don't feed your mind other people's chaos before you've checked in with your own. You ask, what actually matters today? What protects my future? You put those first, not last. First, ruthlessness is not just cutting people off. It's cutting off all the tiny, constant leaks that drain you before the day has even started. Doom scrolling. Checking messages from people who only contact you when they need something. Saying yes to favors before you've even decided what you need for yourself. You close some doors before anyone knocks. At work, ruthlessness isn't being a jerk. It's refusing to play dead. You stop smiling when someone throws work at you that isn't yours. You stop accepting "we're a family" as an excuse for underpaying you, overloading you, and expecting gratitude for crumbs. You don't play martyr. You treat your energy like a limited resource, not a free tap the company can drink from until you collapse. With family, ruthlessness is quiet truth. You visit when you choose, not when guilt dials your number. You help when you can, not every time someone refuses to help themselves. You refuse to keep sitting at tables where the main meal is your dignity. You simply stop volunteering as the sacrifice that keeps the dysfunction going. With love, ruthlessness is choosing connection over addiction. You stop mistaking chaos for chemistry. You stop chasing people who only show up when they're lonely. You'd rather be single and sane than partnered and constantly shattered. So you raise the price of your presence. Not in money, in standards. You can still forgive, but you don't reunite unless there's real change. You can still care, but you don't babysit grown adults who weaponize their wounds. You can still be romantic, but you're no longer hypnotized by potential. You watch patterns. This is how the world tries to break you now and fails. It offers you the same bait, flattery, guilt, fear, loneliness. But there's something different in you, willingness. Willingness to be the bad guy in someone else's story instead of the dead one in your own. Willingness to be misunderstood instead of manipulated. Willingness to walk away instead of waiting to be pushed. Machiavelli understood something about willingness that most nice people never grasp. Read that again. Your whole life, you've judged what you can handle by how big the difficulty feels. Leaving feels huge. Saying no feels huge. Setting a boundary feels huge. But that's because your willingness was small. When you become truly willing, when you finally say, I'm done living like this, the same difficulty shrinks. It's still uncomfortable. Your heart still races. Your hands still shake. But it's not bigger than you anymore. That's the heart of ruthlessness. Not cruelty, not numbness, but willingness. Willingness to experience short-term discomfort for long-term freedom. Willingness to hear, you're selfish, and not rush to prove you're not. Willingness to feel lonely for a while instead of staying surrounded by people who slowly erase you. Willingness to start over instead of endlessly patching something that keeps stabbing you. So where does this leave you? Because you might be thinking, if I live like this, will I end up alone? Hard. Look ahead. Really look. If you stay as you were, soft in all the wrong places, what does your life look like in 10 years? Still apologizing for things that weren't your fault. Still taking calls you don't want to answer. Still explaining yourself to people who have no interest in understanding you. Now look at the other path. You lose some people. You gain sleep. You gain self-respect. You lose some fake peace. You gain real quiet. You become a smaller target. The world still swings. You still get hit sometimes. Life still hurts. But the days of being shattered by every push, every guilt trip, every manipulation, those end when your ruthlessness begins. So let's pull this whole transformation into one clear picture. You started as the person who thought the world would reward your softness. You believed that if you were kind enough, patient enough, forgiving enough, life would eventually see and protect you. Instead, you got used. You got drained. You got broken in slow motion. Then you met Machiavelli, not as a meme, not as a villain, but as a mirror. He forced you to see human nature without filters. People are capable of selfishness you never imagined. Power chooses itself, not the kindest option. Loyalty without leverage is a liability, not a guarantee. You learned that. The world doesn't stop being ruthless because you're gentle. Love, without boundaries, becomes a weapon against you. Mercy, without discernment, makes you a permanent victim. So you began to shift. You accepted that half of life is chaos, but the other half is yours to command. You stopped begging to be chosen and started choosing yourself. You stopped treating your breaking point as a secret and made it a line in the ground. Now you stand at a simple, brutal fork. You can shut this off and go back. Back to explaining. Back to hoping they'll change. Back to letting the world decide how much of you is allowed to exist. Or you can decide that this is the moment your story changes tense. From, I was always the one who, to, I became the one who never again. If you're done letting this world break you piece by piece, like this video. If you're ready to become the kind of person who can live with an open heart in a ruthless world without being torn apart, someone they can't push, can't guilt, and can't quietly destroy, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss what comes next. Drop a comment with Ruthless and Awake, so I know you're not just nodding along. You're stepping into this. You're choosing to be kind by choice, not by compulsion. Soft by design, not by default, but has never been given permission to become sharp. They don't need another quote about staying humble. They need a strategy for staying whole. Because this isn't self-help. This is strategy. This is war. And after this, the world might still hit you, test you, even underestimate you, but it will not break you. You have seen how dark it can be out there. Now you've seen how dark and holy it can be to finally protect yourself. You are not here to be shattered. You are here to stand, ruthless, and still, somehow, deeply, undeniably human.